Hello and welcome back to another episode of Mr. V's Camping Chair Chat. My name is Mr. V. I'm currently sat in a camping chair in a bathtub. Why? Well, why not? But also, I heard that it's popular with Formula 1 content creators nowadays to film videos in baths, so I thought I'd give it a go. Turns out, my bath is a lot smaller than I thought. So I'm kind of hanging out the side for you video users. Feel free to laugh at me. For everyone on audio, it may sound a bit echoey. It's a small, tiled room. So, we have just had the 2024 Italian Grand Prix at Monza. We're going to cover some of the big stories going into the weekend, and then we're going to have a little chat about this race. It was an exciting race, not like the best race ever, but a lot of things to talk about and some interesting implications for title fights, both drivers and constructors, and some implications for the future of Formula 1, including, I almost fell out the bath, new rookies for next year. So, first piece of big news going into this weekend, Ferrari have a special livery for their home race at the Italian Grand Prix. And then they revealed it and it looks exactly the same as their normal livery. So, end of news story. I suppose. Our next big piece of news, Kimi Antonelli, the hotly anticipated Formula 2 driver, Mercedes Academy, I should add, Formula 2 driver, is in for George Russell, I want to say, in FP1, in a Mercedes. It makes sense. He's Italian. Get him in front of the home crowd. It's a popular pick. And also, we're getting into that kind of time of the season where you might have to start finalising driver contracts. We'll come into that in a second. So, Kimi Antonelli goes in a Mercedes for FP1. He drives 6 laps and then spins off a parabolica and smashes the car up. Yeah. It's an interesting way to tackle a job interview. But apparently it didn't hold him back too bad because Saturday morning, Mercedes announced that he is their new driver for 2025. If I could crash a car and still be successful in the job interview, why the hell have I been doing all this preparation and wearing suits and stuff? Like, no one told me the bar was that low. No, for real, it would appear that this announcement on Saturday morning was arranged a long time ago. You know, do it in Italy. He's Italian. Get some of that hometown goodwill and support for the driver. It makes a lot of sense. I guess the idea was that you put him into FP1 and he has like just an okay session, and then you can go, wow, look how good he did in George Russell's car. We should definitely sign him. It looks kind of interesting if he smashes the car. But, you know, it was clearly predetermined. Toto clearly likes this guy. We have heard nothing about anyone else for the Mercedes seat other than Kimi Antonelli's name thousands of times every day for the last 6 months. So it seemed inevitable. We were just waiting for this moment to happen. It has happened. Kimi Antonelli takes one of our final vacant seats for next year. This makes Kimi the 3rd rookie for 2025 after, of course, Ollie Behrman in the Haas. Feels like that was years ago that was announced, but he is going there. And Jack Doohan for Alpine, which was announced last week. We have had a couple seasons with 3 rookies. I think even things like 2021 would count. Am I just making it up? Don't fact check it. But the last time it feels like we really had like 3 hotly anticipated rookies in for a year was 2019, obviously with the arrival of Norris, Russell and Albon. Will be interesting to see if these 3 come into the sport with a similar trajectory. We have the same kind of thing with one going straight to a top-ish team in Mercedes and then the 2 others going in for midfield teams. None of them have got the Russell treatment going into a team that is clearly the worst on the field. Stake F1 team Kick Sauber. So it's going to be a little bit different, but it's going to be interesting to see the comparison between 2025 and the rookie season for the rookies, as they're often known. One interesting piece of news with Kimi Antonelli as our 3rd rookie for next year is he has actually usurped Jack Doohan for his driver number. So after Jack Doohan was announced last weekend, he made quite a big thing. There are several social media posts that he had taken driver number 12. This is obviously a very popular number in sports in general. You know, 12 is quite a common number, 12th man. Some famous sports stars come to mind, like Tom Brady 12 and various other NFL stars. My mind has gone blank, but I'm assuming some footballers. You can tell that I watch a lot of football. But also in Formula One, Ayrton Senna, a little Brazilian driver, you might not have heard of him, famously drove several of his seasons, including his first 2 championship seasons with number 12. So it's quite a sought-after number. Jack Doohan made several announcements saying that he was taking this for next year, and people were like, oh yeah, cool, nice number, man. And then after Mercedes announced Antonelli on Saturday morning, they kind of went, just FYI, we applied for number 12 like 3 months ago, so you can't have it. See ya. And then ran away, which is hilarious. So apparently they applied for this driver number like at the start of this season, and just no one told Jack Doohan or Alpine. I guess they hadn't had the reply email yet to say it's not available, so he made all his announcements and he's got to choose a different number. Anyway, that little tidbit aside, back to Kimi. Is this a good pick for Mercedes? Obviously, time will tell, can't predict the future. This choice has clearly been predetermined from a long time ago. As I said, we've heard no rumours about anyone else going to Mercedes. It's been Antonelli, that's a tongue twister, all year long. Clearly, Toto Wolff and the rest of the Mercedes board are very keen on him. That will be for a reason. They don't just pick names out of a hat. They will have some data, private tests, simulator running, whatever that suggests he is very good. For them to stick a rookie in one of the front-running teams, not the best team in the grid, but one of the front-running teams, a car that only 2 races ago won a race. Kimi has been good in his rookie Formula 2 season. He's been consistent. He's had quite a few finishes outside of the points, not all of those his fault. But he has had decent finishes, which means he's currently sitting P6. I should add, though, Kimi Antonelli not as consistent in his rookie Formula 2 season as some other Formula 2 drivers, such as Franco Colapinto. Major news midweek this week. Logan Sargeant dropped from Williams Formula 1 with immediate effect. There's 9 races to go in this season. He's gone. He's out of here. Handed his P45, sent to the Shadow Realm, as it were. What is to become of Logan Sargeant's future? I wasn't planning to cover that in this video. He will probably pick up a drive in, I would assume, an American Series, IndyCar, IMSA, maybe stick in Europe, like a WEC. I don't know. Wasn't really planning to cover that. Not Formula 1, though, it would seem. I can't see another team picking him up, maybe as like a reserve test driver, but he's not going to see any Formula 1 track action again, I don't think. In for Logan Sargeant then, Williams Academy driver Colapinto, up from Formula 2. So it's an interesting pick for Williams. First, you might be asking, why didn't they use their reserve driver? Who is their reserve driver? Good question. Williams do not have one. They do, however, have a test driver, which is Colapinto. So actually, kind of makes sense as their pick. There were suggestions it would be Mick Schumacher, obviously tied with Mercedes now, who are the engine supplier for Williams, so there's a link there. However, kind of interestingly, in press interviews at the start of this weekend, James Vowles, Williams team's principal, went on record, on a microphone, to the media saying, and I quote, Mick is not special. Mick is good, but he's not special, and we want someone special. Fair enough. I mean, he came out swinging. Didn't need to go in so deep, James. Like, who hurt you? Mick Schumacher, clearly. Williams clearly didn't want Schumacher, so they've taken a bit of a roll of the dice, a bit of a gamble on their best academy prospect, Colapinto. And he's doing very well in Formula 2, to be honest. He is a rookie in F2 this season, is not actually the highest positioned rookie in the driver standings, but considering the rest of the driver class, Behrman, Antonelli, I was going to say Doohan, but he's not actually driving Formula 2 this year, is higher in the standings than either of those two this year. And so if they can make it to Formula 1, why not Colapinto? Should add, obviously, this is just for the end of this season. Williams are still taking science next year, so Colapinto has got 9 races and 3 sprint races to prove himself. It kind of begs the question, What does this do for Colapinto's career? He's obviously just going to finish this season and then not be in Formula 1, presumably. Does he go back to Formula 2? Or is this Williams trying to bolster his stock, trying to prove him, to make kind of like a early move on to another formula, which presumably would make Williams some money? Bit of a kickback in his first paid contract. And that's my reading of this, is that Williams may as well promote one of their junior drivers up, give him 9 races in Formula 1, which is, I think more than Nick de Vries had. Prove that he's a decent driver and then sell him on. Just sell him on. Here you go, Formula E team or IndyCar team. Here's a driver. He did okay in Formula 1. Pay us some money, please. From a pure performance standpoint, does this make sense for William? The issue they had with Sargent is kind of twofold. A, he was crashing a lot. He's leading the Destructors Championship, as it were, as in he's done the most monetary damage, assumed by fans that is, of any driver on the grid, which is not good for any team in a cost cap era, but particularly for Williams, which is not exactly a rich team. But also, James Vowles, also in interviews this week, he wasn't holding back, has said that Logan Sargent has hit his skill ceiling. Basically, they've been giving him all the tools, they've been giving him Albon's telemetry, they've been telling him Albon's setups and braking points and all of this presumably, and Sargent just wasn't improving. That's paraphrasing, but that's effectively what James Vowles said. He said he hit a skill ceiling, he's just not getting there. We need someone who can tip this car over the edge into points, and Sargent just did not have the skills to pay those bills, and Williams, they have bills. So it's a bit of a gamble because obviously you bring a rookie in, rookies crash cars. This is just a fact, rookies crash cars. So there's a strong chance Colapinto will also do quite a lot of crash damage, and there's also a chance that he won't score any points, but I guess it's guaranteed. It's a guaranteed fail if you keep Sargent, according to James Vowles. So you may as well roll the dice, bring in Colapinto, who, you never know, could be child prodigy, puts the car in the points every weekend, happy days. We'll come on to it in the race. He didn't put the car in the points this weekend, but he had a good weekend. He finished only, I want to say, about 12 seconds behind Albon. Had just a quiet race, which is nice. He didn't break the car, so that's good. It's a good first weekend in Formula 1. It was solid. It was solid, considering he only found out he was going to be doing this race on Wednesday, I assume. Really solid effort, so can't fault him on that one. Will this pay off by the end of the season? Well, if Colapinto finishes the season with some points, he will be beating Logan, and so he can quite confidently say yes. If he finishes with 0, it's not a clear no. He could still have done a better job than Sargent in Williams' eyes. He could break the car less and cost them less money. It's going to be hard to judge whether this was a good move. I think what we can say for certain, though, is it's a very harsh move. But Formula 1 is not fair. Lots of people have this assumption that Formula 1 is fair and everyone gets equal opportunities. That's not the case. That's not how this sport works. Never has, never will. And so it makes sense from Williams' point of view. I should add, just looking at Formula 2 standings, Colapinto is no longer ahead of Kimi Antonelli in the Formula 2 standings, but that would be obviously because he didn't take part in the Formula 2 races this weekend, and Antonelli did. So he's been jumped by him, but my point still remains. He was higher rated, probably still would be if he took part. Where does Colapinto go from here? If he does a great job, he might get picked up by another team, and we're going to talk about our final 2 open seats in a second, or he might bank himself a decent drive in another racing series. Really, either of those options is better than another season in Formula 2, so it's a win-win for Colapinto. You would absolutely say yes when you get that call. I mean, no one says no when they get a call saying, do you want to drive in Formula 1? But it's good. It's an excellent opportunity for Colapinto. Hopefully, he can prove himself because he's had a good junior career and he seems to be a well-liked driver. So let's see. Oh, one of my notes I just missed, actually. Interestingly, Colapinto brings 0 sponsorship money with him to Williams, which is an interesting point because, lots of drivers have some amount of backing. Some have a lot of backing, typically referred to as pay drivers. If a driver brings 0 guaranteed sponsorship to a team, they're good. The only reason the team has to sign them in that case is because they have some solid data to say this kid is quick. So it's kind of a good sign for Williams that he doesn't have sponsorship. Obviously, Williams would like that, but it's a good sign. It's always a good sign in the motor racing world. According to James Vowles, some Argentinian companies have popped up out of the woodwork to offer some sponsorship. Now he's there. That may not be as random as he claims. That might actually be a bit of a lie, and that was part of the deal. But according to Williams, he comes with zero sponsorship money. Anyway, it kind of brings us on nicely to our final 2 open seats. We still have a second seat at VCarb, or whatever it may be called next year, some other equally ridiculous name, and an open seat at another team with a stupid name, Stake F1 Team Kick Sauber. There is a rumour, the rumour mill goes, that Liam Lawson is soon to be announced for RB for next year. The Formula One world seems to think that he will be announced at the start of the Baku weekend. It's the next race weekend, 2 weeks' time. What does that mean for Daniel Ricciardo, who would presumably be out of a job? We have one final seat open in Formula One, which is the second seat at Sauber alongside Nico Hülkenberg. Now, do Sauber want Ricciardo? Honestly, on current form, I can't see why they would. The only reason would be for that public perception and potentially some merchandise sales, that kind of thing. They do need some good public perception because it's not been a popular choice taking Stake F1 Team Kick as a title partner, so they could do with some good brand image to kind of build some fan base for that team ahead of the Audi pick. So I can see Ricciardo making sense in that regard. His on-track performance is still, I think is the best adjective for it. It's not been great, and it wasn't fantastic here in Monza either. He had kind of this crappy weekend, bit of a struggle weekend for Ricciardo, I have to say. The other question you have to ask is, if he did get an offer, does Ricciardo want to go to Sauber? Would you want to go to clearly the worst team on the grid to drive there for probably only 1 year before they become Audi and then get binned into obscurity because, like, that is not a good way to prove your skills driving for the slowest team on the grid? If I was Ricciardo, no, I wouldn't want that. He doesn't get much benefit from being there. I think I said this last time, is he doesn't need the money. He doesn't need the exposure. I guess he could do over a year to kind of prove himself that he's still got what it takes. It's hard to do that from P19. I don't think Ricciardo would take it even if he was offered that. So I think Ricciardo, if Liam Lawson is going to RB, is going to move down to a reserve driver role at RB, same thing he did in between McLaren and RB, which means Sauber need to find someone else for their second seat. They could pick one of the other sort of outgoing Formula One drivers, Kevin Magnussen. They're not going to do that. They could keep Valtteri Bottas. I don't think they're going to do that. They could keep Guan Yu Zhou, which politically makes a lot of sense, but his performance is bad. He is just not performing well, like one of the worst in the sport currently. It's hard to justify keeping him if you're trying to scrape some points. Could Sauber start to look at a rookie? If Sauber were looking to, say, Formula 2 to pick up a rookie for 2025, lo and behold, they have a really good one in the Sauber Academy. Zane Maloney, currently third in the Formula 2 driver standings, is looking fantastic this year. Won the opening 2 races of the season and is consistently getting podiums and picking up a couple other wins. Looked really good this weekend in Monza. He would be an excellent choice. I really rate Maloney. I think he's an excellent rookie. I think he would just pick it up really well if he were dropped into Formula One. I think he'd be popular as well. He's just a cool dude. A driver from Barbados. Hell yeah, man. It's just, I think it would be a popular choice. I think he would do well as well. He's been solid in Formula 2 this year. There is one other name that's been kind of thrown into this ring, which is Bortoleto. So what's better than the driver who's currently third in the Formula 2 standings, the driver who's currently second in the Formula 2 standings? Gabriele, I think, Bortoleto absolutely stormed Monza this weekend. Solid sprint race, and then from P22 won the feature race. He is doing YouTube video challenges in the Formula 2 feature race. He was aided by lucky safety car timing, yes, but still, it's not easy, man. It's not easy. Bortoleto is looking very, very good this year. And he's a rookie. And he's the reigning, well, actually, not as of today, but he was the reigning Formula 3 champion. He might win the Formula 2 championship, effectively doing a Piastri. It's hard to ignore a driver who wins both championships back to back. One small snag for Sauber is that Bortoleto is in the McLaren Driver Academy. Now, obviously, McLaren don't need him for next year unless Norris and or Piastri get annoyed with the poor strategy from their team. They're going to have those two for a little while, so they don't need anyone, and they don't have like a second team to ship him off to. They could definitely make some deal with Sauber. You know, why not? Get some goodwill with Audi coming into the picture. Sell him your smashing junior driver. It makes a lot of sense. Two excellent rookies, therefore, who could mean we have a 4-rookie class of 2025. I've said it before, I would be very happy with that. I love seeing new talent come into the sport. Formula 1's a different beast. So we don't know if someone's a good Formula 1 driver until they have driven Formula 1, until they've been a Formula 1 driver. And so stick as many people in Formula 1 as you can. Get them in, pile them in, open the door, get in, lads, sit on each other's lap, all of you in the back seat. Let's go racing. Let's go Formula 1 racing. Let's figure out who's a good Formula 1 driver. That's my choice, therefore, is pick up one of these two, either Maloney or Bortoleto. Stick him in that Sauber next to Hulkenberg. He's got the experience. He can develop a car. They're quick rookies. I think it would be amazing. I don't know what Sauber is looking for. I don't think Sauber knows what Sauber is looking for. Stake F1 team Kick definitely doesn't know anything about racing, seemingly. It's a mystery what that team is going to do, or when they're going to do it, or how they're going to do it. They might announce it in like a blackjack live stream on Kick. I don't know. It's going to be weird, whatever happens. But anyway, 2 final seats in the grid. Seems like one is going to be filled in Baku. Could be interesting. All right, enough waffle. Let's actually talk about the Italian Grand Prix 2024. So start off with qualifying. The headlines from that have to be Norris picks up another pole position, and it's a McLaren front row lockout of Oscar Piastri taking P2. Those cars looked clearly the best in qualifying trim. It was actually relatively close, only a couple tenths in it, but they didn't seem to really struggle to pick up that front row lockout. It feels like they actually maybe had more pace. They just look comfortable getting there. So McLaren front row lockout, Russell directly behind. Then we have the Ferraris. Poor qualifying for both the Red Bulls. Well, poor qualifying for Max, who qualified P7, and then actually kind of a normal qualifying for Perez, who qualified P8, right behind Verstappen. It looks good for him, being close to Verstappen. He also managed to out-qualify Williams this time, only just, because Albon was P9, but you know, you take the small wins. Looks like things are ever so slightly falling apart for Red Bull. Not good qualifying. Max Verstappen, very, very unhappy in interviews. He's not playing the political game. He's just coming out and going like, yeah, the car's bad. It's not fast anymore. We've screwed the development. It's going to be slow to the end of the year. Encouraging stuff from your lead driver. Kind of good for him that he has such a long championship lead. We'll talk about that at the end of the episode. So, Norris on pole with his teammate next to him, and the McLaren looks like easily the fastest car, means this is Norris's win to lose. And, oh boy! Yeah, he lost it. So, opening lap, he does get a decent start, goes through turn 1, still in P1, but then up to the second chicane, turns 4 and 5. Piastri actually sends it around the outside of Norris, takes the lead of the race. Some may say this is Norris bottling it, getting caught off guard, wasn't expecting his teammate to fight him, isn't good at opening laps, blah, 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 blah. I would say this was a worldy move from Piastri. Watching it happen, there was nothing Norris could have done. Piastri was like inch perfect with that car, sent it around the outside into the chicane in such a way that the only way Norris could have come out of the corner ahead of Piastri would have been to drive into the side of Piastri and tear the wheels off his car, which would probably get him in some trouble with the team. So yeah, Piastri gave him no choice, just took P1. Norris did then kind of fumble a little bit and also let Leclerc through, drops himself to P3, which is where he finishes the first lap. So yes, the Norris opening lap, Norris can't start thing has not been shaken. 2 races in a row, he loses pole position on the opening lap. You need to stop doing that. You need to stop doing that if you want to win more races. We kind of then settle into the race, and it looks like all of the top teams are on the same strategy, and it looks like McLaren have the best pace on their tyres. So it seems pretty clear that McLaren is going to win this race. Piastri is the one leading, though, with Leclerc in between the 2 McLarens for a lot of the first stint. They then get ahead of it and they then get near to each other after the first set of stops. We get an interesting tidbit on the radio, which is Lando being told it's papaya rules. If and when he catches up with Oscar, it's papaya rules. There was some discussion as to what this can mean. Some people clarifying it's the rules of engagement for McLaren. Obviously, no one knows what those rules of engagement are because, Ted Kravitz is not in the meetings at McLaren, but it's safe to assume that this is some kind of pre-discussion they've had about how the 2 McLarens can fight each other. McLaren has specified that they don't have a first and second driver. They have their 2 cars, and their cars are allowed to fight each other and challenge each other for the win. Papaya rules, therefore, would either be some discussion on types of move to make, types of overtake to make. They'll say, if you get past your teammate cleanly with DRS open before the corner, cool, but it might be don't send it up the inside on the brakes because that's how you retire both cars in the same lap. It's probably something like that. It could even be something as deep as saying, if you are going to overtake your teammate, do it here. They might pre-designate corners on the track and say, this is where you're allowed to fight. These are the safest points to fight. And also it means your teammate knows it's coming. Do it here. If you do it anywhere else, you're going in the naughty corner for a race or 2. It's going to be something like this, but yeah, papaya rules come over the radio. The McLaren's told they're allowed to fight, and then they actually just never got close to each other, so they never did get to fight. Turns out that the McLarens didn't need to be worried about each other, they needed to be worried about Ferrari. So McLaren stick to what everyone assumes to be the standard strategy, a 2-stop strategy. Ferrari decided to pull the mega overcut on their second stop and just not do their second stop. So they swapped to doing a 1-stop, just stayed out super long on their second set of tyres, and it worked. McLaren just couldn't catch him. So Leclerc was in the lead, Sainz second. Both McLarens did catch Sainz. Leclerc, who had older hard tyres on, was just so far up the road, they couldn't get to him. They just couldn't get to him in the end. Leclerc wins the 2024 Italian Grand Prix. Scenes all around, obviously. A Ferrari winning at Monza is quite a popular win. Quite a big deal. Some quite happy tifosi in the crowds. It would be easy to say this is McLaren fumbling again. And they did a little bit. I'll talk about that in a second. But also, Ferrari, good strategy. What? They just pulled a masterclass. And they played a hand that could not be defended against. They effectively called McLaren's bluff, realised that they had pace in the tyres they had on, and then couldn't be caught. And so Ferrari made a good strategy decision in in their home race, which is where they normally make some of the worst decisions. Who's running this team and what have they done with Ferrari? It's good to see. It's nice to see. As I said, a very popular win. You can't be mad. You can't be mad to see Leclerc win. You can't be mad to see a Ferrari win, just kind of full stop. And you definitely can't be sad to see Leclerc win in a Ferrari in Monza. It's a nice scene. I should add, McLaren did still fumble this a little bit. You got your two cars running relatively close to each other, and you see a risk that Ferrari could start to go long. Why not split the strategies? Realistically, you want Norris to win, most importantly. We'll come on to that as well in a second. Leave him on what you think is the best strategy, but split the strategies. You're close enough to the Ferraris that you need to cover them off in case they try and overcut you, but they just pit both the McLarens one lap apart and then they got caught out. Like, just leave Oscar out. What are you doing, McLaren? So it's an excellent weekend by Ferrari, but it's also another minor fumble by McLaren. I can't give this one entirely to Ferrari. I'm sorry. McLaren have just not figured out what is wrong in their strategy team, and it's still haunting them. If they had just split the strategies, whichever car went long would have beat those Ferraris. Simple as. And so, once again, McLaren are McLaren's greatest enemy. So coming back to the papaya rules thing and the fact that McLaren don't have a clear first driver and number two driver, there's some discussion now as to, is that the right thing to do? Like, Norris has a chance to win the Drivers' Championship. Technically, Oscar also is still in contention for the Drivers' Championship, but he's far enough behind that he's not. Lando is the one going to win the Drivers' Championship. It doesn't matter in which order your cars finish for the Constructors' Championship. Lots of discussion as to why the hell McLaren are letting their cars fight. Just tell Oscar that he has to let Lando finish in front, give Lando as many points as possible, and, you know, do things like this to help the strategy. If you split the cars and Oscar got in front, then he could slow Leclerc down and help Lando catch up and get past and maybe win, that kind of thing. There's some discussion, is it correct for McLaren to leave their two drivers on equal footing? From a purely sporting point of view, no, it's kind of stupid. My take on this is, though, I feel like McLaren aren't that stupid. They must know that having a clear driver hierarchy is better for winning the Drivers' Championship. And so I was thinking to myself, why are they not doing that then? I have a feeling, this is completely unconfirmed, this is rumour, source Mr. V. I have a feeling there might be a clause in Oscar Piastri's contract that he's not allowed to be treated as like a second driver, and that McLaren aren't allowed to call these kind of like Fernando is faster than you team orders, because Mark Webber is his manager, and there was a little incident in in Red Bull a few years ago, Multi 21. I think there's a chance Mark Webber has put some clause in Oscar's contract that McLaren are not allowed to do this to Oscar, because there's no other logical reason other than McLaren just being a bit bad at their jobs that McLaren wouldn't tell Oscar to finish behind Lando. And so it would be wild if that was the case. I mean, Mark Webber, manager of the year, if that is the case, as he has been for the last couple of years, actually getting Oscar this job. Yeah, whatever the reason may be, McLaren need to really look at themselves in the mirror and ask themselves, do we want to win this Drivers' Championship? So, talking about the Drivers' Championship, let's do a little section I like to call Championship Watch. Might blow out the microphone, who knows. So our championship leader, Max Verstappen, finishes in Monza P6. That bags him 8 points, which takes him to a grand total of 303 for the season. Lando doesn't win the race, but he does finish P3 and gets the fastest lap from Max, quite ironically, which is probably quite annoying if you're Verstappen. 16 points takes him to 241 1. 62 points behind Verstappen, which means he needs just under 8 points per race. We have 8 main races and also 3 sprint races, so 8 points per weekend, let's say. It's effectively the exact same position we were in before Monza. The gap, per race, has stayed exactly the same as it was after the Netherlands. It is possible, and if Red Bull is as slow as Max Verstappen would have you believe, he was talking as if that he's going to finish every race P6 or P7 now. And if that is the case, and Verstappen is only scoring 8 points a race, and Lando stops, McLaren stops bottling them, and Lando is picking up, 15, 18, 25, it is doable. I will say, I think Verstappen's winning days are not over, as pessimistic as he may be. I think Verstappen is going to have 1 or 2 races that he wins, or at least finishes ahead of Lando. And there's always retirements. Lando retired in Las Vegas last year. There's always random stuff like this. You could hit a drain cover. You could hit a flying front wing that's come off George Russell. It's racing. Random stuff happens. You can't assume that Lando's going to finish every race. You can't assume that he's going to win or be on the podium every race. You can't assume that Red Bull are always going to be this bad. We've got Mexico coming up where they're very strong. We've got, I was going to say Singapore, but that's the opposite. They're actually very bad there. We've got Baku next where Red Bull are very strong, that kind of thing. So 8 points per race is doable, yes. I don't think it's going to happen. There's a chance, I'm going to put it around 20 or 25%. If we have a weekend where Lando wins with the fastest lap and Verstappen DNFs or finishes P11, that massively changes the picture. But this kind of race of attrition that we have currently, I don't see Lando taking it. One interesting thing to note in the Drivers' Championship is Leclerc, with his P1 today, is now up to 217 points, which puts him 24 behind Norris, less than 1 race win, and 86 behind Max. I was going to say only 86, but 86 is a lot of points. Leclerc needs just under 11 points per weekend. Again, it's a lot. That's basically a win when your opponent comes P6, which is what happened today. It's not going to happen every time, but it is doable. Ferrari brought an upgrade package to Monza, which appears to be looking good. And we have a lot of tracks coming up, which Ferrari historically are pretty good on. I would expect them to be good in Baku. I would expect them to be good in Singapore. I would expect them to be good in Vegas and Kota. That's the one I was thinking of. I would expect them to be good in all of these places. While I don't think it's going to happen, I give Leclerc outside odds 10%, 5 to 10% chance that he finishes the season pretty close to Verstappen. Even if Leclerc doesn't overtake Verstappen, if Leclerc somehow finishes second in the driver's standings ahead of Norris who has definitely the best car and should score the most points from now until the end of the season, if Leclerc somehow does outscore Norris and finishes second in the Drivers' Championship, this is a major failure, or this will be a major failure for McLaren and for Lando Norris. Just inexcusable kind of failure, but a couple more weekends like this one, and we're heading in that direction. It's worth noting that Leclerc, while he's won 2 races this year, Leclerc has had an amazing season, very quietly, just in the background, rumbling along, jogging along, picking up points and points and points. Leclerc is having an amazing season considering the car he has compared to the cars his competitors has. It's wild that he's 24 points behind Lando. I know Lando had a very poor start to the season. We shouldn't be talking about the possibility of Leclerc overtaking Lando, and yet we are, which just shows you the state of events. So that's the driver's standings. In theory, everyone down to George Russell is eligible to win. If Verstappen and Norris and Leclerc and everyone DNF every race and Russell wins every race, it is possible. I think you have to get down to Alonso now to be ineligible. They're not going to win. And realistically, Max has already won because, overcoming a 84-point deficit is literally unheard of. Never been done before. But that's where we stand. If Red Bull are as slow as Verstappen claims, then we've got a title fight on our hands. We also have a title fight for the Constructors' title. Following the Italian Grand Prix, Red Bull Racing is on 446 points. McLaren is on 438 points, only 8 points behind. And Ferrari's on 407, only 39 points behind Red Bull, which means after next weekend, any of those three could be leading the Constructors' Championship. If Ferrari have another strong weekend in Azerbaijan and McLaren do a McLaren and Red Bull are just slow again, Ferrari could be winning the Constructors or leading the Constructors. If McLaren continue with their strong pace and win the races that they realistically should, Red Bull cannot hold an 8-point lead. So we have a Constructors' title fight on our hands, and it could be between McLaren and Ferrari, with Red Bull coming in third, which is going to be... If you told that to someone a year ago, they would laugh at you. So those are our championship standings, which brings us to our next race in 2 weeks' time in Azerbaijan on the streets of Baku City. One final thing I should mention for the next race at the bottom of my notes here is not every single driver from this race will be in that race because someone's been banned. It's a one-race ban, not like for the rest of the season, but Mr. Kevin Magnussen has got himself up to 12 penalty points, and if Haas don't appeal that, will not take part in Azerbaijan. So Magnussen had an incident with Gasly in this race today. Basically sent it up the inside of turn 4. They bumped wheels. Gasly goes off, cuts the corner. Magnussen goes round. Blah, 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 blah. Magnussen gets 10-second penalty for causing a collision and 2 penalty points. He was on 10. 10 plus 2, in case you need some help with that, is 12, which is the limit for a race ban. Now, that's not finalised. That's the final decision of the stewards, but there is an appeals process. Haas can open up an appeal. But also, interestingly, in the interview pen, Gasly was told about this, and maybe after the interview pen, but when it happened, Gasly is on record in an interview when he is told about Magnussen's ban, saying that he, Gasly, thinks that's unfair. He thinks it's overly harsh for the collision that they had, and he doesn't think that Magnussen should get a race ban. And Gasly is on record saying, I will see what I can do to help him get that removed. So, as things currently stand, Magnussen's not racing. This is obviously going to come out on Monday. Maybe that won't be the case anymore. Check your favourite Formula One news outlet, or just, the starting grid in Baku, and you'll find out. But yeah, bit of a weird one. It is overly harsh for the collision that Magnussen and Gasly had, but one could argue that it might just be karma for Magnussen, honestly, considering his many, many antics for this year, and even his other antics in this race, could be a bit of the universe realigning itself, because Magnussen's had a scrappy season. Calling this a clean season would just be a blatant lie. It seems that Magnussen has been involved in some kind of scrap or some, overly ambitious incident every single race. He's been penalised for a handful of them, which is why he's got so many penalty points, but he's also had a few where he didn't get penalised, and some, let's say, erratic driving in some of the races to hold people back from Hulkenberg, which he didn't get penalised for. So you could argue that this is just some kind of karmic alignment for Magnussen. Who knows? Who knows? He seemed very unhappy. He said, I've been racing for years, And he said, I talked to the stewards a lot, which is quite funny. He said, I talked to them a lot and I still don't understand what I meant to do. So Magnussen basically saying, and echoing the thoughts of lots of drivers, stewarding decisions, not always the most consistent in Formula One, but no one else is on 12 points, Magnussen. There could be a reason for that. Keep an eye out on Formula One news if Magnussen gets unbanned, but as things stand, he is not going to be on the grid in Baku. It makes perfect sense that Behrman would replace him if Magnussen can't race. He's obviously signed for Haas next year, and I want to say Formula 2 is going to be there anyway. So if Magnussen's not there, I can't see it being anyone other than Behrman. So potentially we'll see Behrman again. He can get more driver's standing points. Haas do have the ability to score points, so he might pick up some more. And then the graphic will be weird because they always currently list him with a Ferrari badge next to his name. Will they split it in half and do Ferrari/Haas? Or will he just be Haas now because he's going to be Haas next year? These are unimportant questions that no one needs to answer. So really, let's just see. Maybe we see Behrman in Baku. I think one thing we can say for certain, though, is we're going to see some interesting racing in Baku and every track from here on out, because this season is spicy. Constructors' Championship wide open, Drivers' Championship less wide but still open, and many cars capable of winning races. This is the Formula One we love. This is good stuff. I'm excited. We've got a week break. Not planning to do the podcast next weekend since no race, but if you guys would like to hear my wonderful, lovely, sultry voice every single Monday, let me know. Let me know if you want this to become a weekly thing. I'll figure something out. We'll do something a bit more off the beaten path. I'll figure out some more long-term story, or I'll figure out some game, or I might organise a guest. I'm going to be in the middle of nowhere next week on a farm. So it's unlikely I'll get a guest to agree to come out to the farm. But stranger things have happened, so we shall see. Let me know what you want. But until then, I've been Mr. V. I'm going to get out this bath because I don't need to explain myself. I just want to get out of the bath. Anyway, catch you around. Hope you enjoyed the pod. Give it a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple, wherever you may be listening. Like the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'll see you later.